Now that we've gone through costs, we want to look at the other part of the picture when you're trying to figure out profit, and that's revenue. Specifically, we're going to look at revenue for what we call a perfect competition. You'll hear more about that term later, perfect competition, but please understand for now that it's one of the two extremes that we see competition existing as. Perfect competition would be where the market functions, demand and supply function perfectly to establish the price in the market. The other extreme is where demand and supply don't function at all because the market is controlled by one person, which we call a monopoly. So when we talk about a perfect competition, the idea is that you have basically infinite sellers of the exact same good. A homogeneous product means they're the exact same. Well, clearly we can't have infinite sellers of anything, and to suggest that any products are homogeneous is rather difficult. So this idea of a perfect competition is just a model to which we compare, and we understand there's not really great examples of perfect competition in real life, which kind of gets ahead of us a little bit, but the point is that a lot of the things that we're saying, it would be really good if this works, that's the problem. They don't work because we don't have competition that is perfect. Okay, so what we're going to see here is this, is that when we look at the market, the overall market, so the market for, say, bananas. We use that example a lot, I know. It's a good example. So that's pretty close. Most bananas are very similar to each other. I don't mean different varieties of bananas, but of the same variety of banana, well, they're going to be pretty similar to each other. There's not infinite sellers of bananas, but there could be. There could be lots and lots of sellers of bananas because it doesn't take a whole lot for someone to become a banana farmer. So what we're going to look at is, remember, it's theory of the firm, so it's what's over here that we actually care about, but to get here, we have to first start here. Within the market for bananas, this is going to operate just like what we learned in basic microeconomics. We're going to see demand and supply for bananas, and from that, we're going to see a price that is generated in the market. So this price that is generated in the market is really important because the firm has to use the price that the market provides. Because of that, we refer to the firm in perfect competition as being a price taker. And again, this indicates that they're not able to set their own price. They just have to accept the price that is established by the overall market. Now, to understand why that's true, it's important we make a comparison between this quantity that exists in the market and the quantities that we might put down here. The point is, these quantities, whatever they might be, are a drop in the bucket, as the old saying goes. They're so small, that is, the firm is so small in comparison to the overall market, that any increases or decreases here can't really be reflected over here in the supply curve. It's just too small of a change. The example I always like to make is if I take a glass of water and I run up to the pool and dump the water into the pool, well, yeah, technically the pool becomes more full, but it doesn't become more full in any sort of meaningful way. And likewise, if I were to scoop a glass full of water out. So that's kind of the situation that we get with the individual firm. Because there are so many sellers, the individual firm, one of these almost infinite sellers, they just aren't substantial in relation to the overall market. Okay, so now that we know that the firm is going to just take the price that's set in the market, and do notice one thing, if there's a change in demand or supply overall for the market, so if people figure out that bananas are healthier and there's increased demand, then the price would go up. Likewise, the firm is going to take that higher price and sell at that higher price. So now that we know that they're price takers, or have at least established that assumption, well then what we can do is, with a bit of quick analysis, we can see that at P1, at the price, the firm can sell any output they would like. However, if they raise the price just a little bit, just a penny or two above the established price, well, because there's so many sellers, people would not buy from them because they're more expensive. They would instead buy from the other sellers. So if the firm raises its price, it's the demand for the firm's product is going to go to zero. Now the firm could lower price if it wanted to, but if I tell you that you can sell 100 bananas at either $1 each or 50 cents each, but either way you can sell 100 or 200 or 300 or 400. And again, that's the point, is this is horizontal, it just keeps going. Well, obviously you're gonna raise your price to the market price. The only reason you would lower your price would be to increase the quantity demanded for your product, but here, since it's perfectly elastic, that doesn't need to happen. Keep in mind, this is a model that we compare to. It doesn't really happen in real life or exist in real life. So if we take this and then say, okay, well, here's the demand schedule for the firm. So we see that at any quantity, as the quantity goes up and up and up, the price remains the same. So I can sell one banana for a price of 5, maybe a ton of bananas, anyway, or a bunch of bananas, I mean. I can sell 5 bunches of bananas for a price of 5, or 7 bunches of bananas at a price of 5. So the point is that quantity goes up and up and up, but price is always going to be the price that exists from the market. If we convert this over, so we're going to look at marginal revenue, average revenue, and total revenue. Let's go ahead and start with total revenue first. Well, here, if I sell 1 bunch of bananas for $5, my total revenue is 5. If I sell 2 for $5, then it's 10. 3 for $5, 15, 20, so on and so forth. It's just going to grow by 5. We see that represented in this graph here. So this is the total revenue for the firm. And we see it just goes up in a linear fashion. There's no curve or anything like that. Once we know total revenue, well, it's easy to derive marginal revenue. How much did the total revenue change by? Well, when I went from selling 1 bunch to 2 bunches, I went from 5 to 10, so it changed by 5. So the marginal revenue is 5. 10 to 15 is a change of 5, and so on and so forth. So our marginal revenue, if the price is 5, then this line is saying that at any quantity, the marginal revenue is also 5. So this demand curve that I had drawn is also the marginal revenue curve. Likewise, average revenue, we're going to take total revenue and divide it by the quantity. Well, obviously, since they all were sold for 5, then the average revenue is also going to be 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 35 divided by 7 is 5, so on and so forth. So this curve is also the average revenue curve for the firm. So this is going to be our starting point when we go to calculate profit, which is the next step. It's a pretty easy idea. If you need to sketch it, it's as simple as if you need to sketch revenue for a firm in perfect competition in the short run, you just simply draw a horizontal line and you label it demand, marginal revenue, and average revenue. You don't even have to label it demand all the time, but sometimes it's important to remember that it is, in fact, the demand curve that this individual firm is facing. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below.